Hi, love. So this is our body paragraphs mini lesson for research. It's going to be a quick one. We know that there are essentially 4 things that are important in your body paragraphs. In some way, shape, or form, there should be transitions. That's between paragraphs and within sentences, or between sentences. You need a topic sentence or something that's going to clearly state your claim that is representing your thesis and building, and then using specific evidence and analysis before you have a brief wrap-up sentence, which we will chat about. So essentially, the transition sentence leads from a previous paragraph to assure a smooth reading, a handoff from one idea to the next. But it doesn't just hand off in a sort of infantile way, a first, next, last type of way, but rather looks at how one idea relates to the next. How do ideas build from one another, between one another, contrast one another? And really think about your overall argument as you're transitioning between ideas in terms of your paragraphs. Also within the sentences, within the paragraph and between the sentences, you really want to think about how you're transitioning using phrases and clauses, not just words, as I said before. So you definitely need a topic sentence, one that tells the reader what you'll be discussing in the paragraph, and really eventually how that is going to function within a larger argument. Then you need some evidence and explanation, your well-chosen support points from your plan that you made, quotes and paraphrasing, a nice balance of that develop your claims. This provides a deeper level of detail than just your topic sentence. This is logos, a lot of logos in here. How are the quotes from experts and examples and studies going to build what you're trying to say in your topic sentence and really overall? And then finally, a brief wrap-up or concluding sentence tells the reader how and why this information supports the thesis. The brief wrap-up is also known as a warrant, which you heard about in the pre-writing planning. The warrant is important to your argument because it really connects your reasoning and supports your thesis, and it shows that the information in the paragraph is related to your thesis and helps defend it. Now, this does not mean that at the end of every paragraph you're going to say something like, or write something like, and this is how this claim blah 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 towards your thesis. You know this. Cannot be a 4th grade robot, but rather, what are you actually saying? So use that interpretive prowess that you have been gleaning from all of our AP writing and apply it to this kind of argument writing. Okay, so some ideas to consider before writing. As you write and edit your body paragraphs, really think of these steps. Reread your point and evidence from the outline or from your pre-writing, whatever you plan for the paragraph you're about to write. Is the point really, really reflective of all of that evidence that you plan to use? Does it make sense to what you're arguing? If it isn't or doesn't, then change the point or consider adding or removing that evidence if it will help. Don't just use it because it's in your plan. Don't just use it because you found it. Use it purposefully and meaningfully. Then decide what should be paraphrased and what should be quoted. And I know you guys have been working on this in citizenship and in other classes. In general, paraphrase almost everything. Quote only small parts of the original that you think are especially revealing or that you don't think you could say any better. Then decide how you're to cite your sources. If there's nothing particularly persuasive or meaningful about the source in terms of who's saying it, maybe with ethos, simply cite it in parentheses at the end of the sentence. If you think it will be helpful to persuade your reader of your point, then introduce a source in a sentence before you give evidence with something like according to or another introducing or embedding technique. Then finally, decide on what you want to say and add to the main point so you can insert your own original sentence before or after the evidence to explain the reader. And then that you can really make it so it relates to the point in the rest of the paragraph, how that evidence relates. So 10 criteria for writing. The first sentence of the paragraph is most often the one of the supporting points from the outline. Now, it doesn't have to be the first sentence. Perhaps you transition with a sentence, something that is bridging between one idea to the next. The paragraph never really strays from the point. make sure that that happens, because if you start incorporating evidence that is maybe belongs in a different paragraph, you're starting to really take away from allowing that argument to speak for itself. The sentence flow, it needs to be awesome and use those internal transitions that I discussed. It needs to have at least one anecdote, fact, detail, example, whatever that illustrates your point. At least one. I mean, more than one is better, or more than one example of the same sort of illustration, as long as they're purposeful and meaningful. The paragraph should contain at least two pieces of evidence. This does not necessarily mean a quoted citation in each paragraph. Maybe it's just paraphrased. That's okay, but if you use it from a source, then you need to cite it, even if it's just paraphrasing. The evidence comes from at least two different sources. This is really just to avoid you using one source and the next source and the next source, where you're not really synthesizing your ideas to come to your own conclusion. You're simply just kind of reviewing or recapping what someone else said, and then that's it. Doesn't really work. That's more like a book, or that's more like a report, the kinds of things that we did when we were younger. That's not what this is. Make sure your sources are cited correctly. Of course, you can access OWL and some of the materials that we've been giving you. The sources should be cited in a way that's convincing to the reader, as I explained before. The evidence should convince the reader of the point, and not in a emotionally loaded way, but rather just allow your logic and how you allow that logic to develop, or how you actually control that logic to develop, to do the convincing for you. The paragraph should have at minimum 150 words, and this is without prepositions. But then don't put in random stuff to put in to bulk it up, but have enough details and stories and examples to clarify your argument, and really have something to say about it. You can self-check with coding. Find your topic sentence, put a bracket around it. Is your controlling idea from your thesis statement in there? If it's not, maybe that's not the best for it. Circle your transitions. Do they function appropriately and correctly? Label your main points. Do you have 1, 2, 3 main points? Do you repeat one of them? Is that necessary? This will help you kind of identify where your argument is. Underline once the evidence and twice the explanation. What evidence are you using, and why or how is it important to your overall claim? And then your wrap-up sentence or your warrant sentence that recaps that topic and gives meaning to the controlling idea. Again, it recaps, it doesn't restate, and it needs to say something meaningful and new to your reader to sort of like better advance your thesis statement and your argument. So here's Ima's. So you can take some time to look at how she incorporated various sources. Do you think she did it well enough? So where did she paraphrase? Where did she choose to quote? Is that something that she should have done better? So do just take some time to evaluate how well she did with this. And then as you move on to craft your own paragraphs, then you can use this sort of as a guide. Enjoy!